So
Can I get involved in marketing? Do I run it?
Email exchange between.
You have to go to Atlanta a lot. I may have to.
Yeah, applicant.
I'm just kidding.
Thinking how he wants to use
You're like CEO now. You've been promoted to the
I just
CEO
climbed
of,
a ladder. Everyone says
Well, I
climb the
know
ladder, but I
Union
just took the
Road
elevator and got there
people
fast.
helped go back to the top.
Yeah.
He married into the Truett family. He lived the smart way.
wow, yeah, there you go.
Private property.
Yeah, if they got some daughters, that might be a good financial strategy.
Yeah, I heard Ed Whiting had a pretty
That's the
big
problem.
spill.
You have planners and developers, but
Broke his
One has the
nose
money.
and broke his,
But one has
shattered
the
his
vision.
elbow.
Yeah.
Riding a bike was supposed to be healthy
No,
for
he
you.
was
Sometimes.
broken.
yeah. Tricky.
Yeah, I was saying, we're in the right
Chick-fil-A,
time
that's
zone.
one of those.
That's always a good thing.
I'd like to call a meeting of the June 15th meeting of the Farragut Municipal Planning Commission to order. First order of business on our agenda is the Citizens Forum. It's a point on the agenda where citizens are free to come and speak to us and voice anything they want to say about anything that's not on the agenda. We want to ask to wait for the agenda items to address your comments at that time. So, are there any comments from the audience for the Citizens Forum tonight? If not, I think Betty, you have some comments.
Yes, I do. I'd like to apologize to Mark and the rest of the commissioners for not appearing at the June the 1st meeting over at NHC, particularly since it was set when I could be there.
Oh, that's all right.
But my son and daughter, it's not a reason, and granddaughter came on Wednesday, son-in-law and granddaughter, and Thursday, the granddaughter and I did so much, I forgot about it. Thursday morning, I had planned to bring her with me, but I forgot it. So I'm embarrassed, and I apologize.
Yeah, we'll forgive you this time.
Didn't remember I'd missed it till Monday of
Hot
this
out there,
week.
so
It was hot.
we worked with the town. I think we got a good resolution, and we appreciate NHC's help with working with the town on getting those facilities in.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you have anything this evening?
No, I don't think so.
If not, we'll go to approval of the agenda. Mark?
I would say item number 4 has been recommended for postponement at the request of the applicant, and item number 5, as I indicated in the report on that one, is evolved into a workshop discussion. They're not presenting building modifications at this time, and we'll talk about that a little later, but staff did still want to talk about that as a kind of an ordinance-related workshop discussion item. So that's the only 2 modifications to the agenda.
I would suggest that perhaps we move item 5 to 7, since there are people here, I think, for that item, so we can move that up the agenda, since that's now just a workshop item.
So moved with Ed's recommendation.
So clarity, what are we doing? What's the
You want to
first?
move 7 to the next item on the agenda then? Is that what you're saying? Swapping out 5 or 7?
Correct.
Okay.
So the next thing.
No,
we're gonna-
no, moving
No.
6 up.
6 up to 5.
Okay, 6 to
Move the one
5.
we're going to vote on up to after the
I got you.
item of business.
Okay.
So
Yep.
should we move 5 below Union Road so that the,
Right.
Ivy,
5
sorry.
becomes 7, 6 becomes
Okay.
4,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Yes.
Yeah.
6
We got it.
becomes 5, or now 4. Okay.
4.
I got it. Yep, makes sense.
Motion to approve the agenda as revised.
Second.
All in favor of the motion? Say
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The agenda is modified as approved.
Let's see.
Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for the May 18th, 2017 meeting. Are there any comments, corrections, or additions?
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Drew, do you abstain?
Nope, I voted in favor.
You weren't here.
You have
No,
to
I
abstain if
abstain.
you're here.
Yeah, I haven't done this thing.
So,
Abstain. Thanks.
okay. Next
Agenda
item of
is-
business is discussion and public hearing on a request to rezone parcels 79, 80, 81, 97, 96, 96.01, tax map 151, and portions of parcels 78, 95, 95.01, tax map 151, located along Kingston Pike and South Watt Road, 18.65 acres from R1 and C1 to PCD, GBS Engineering applicant.
Okay, this item was discussed, the zoning map amendment item has been discussed at the previous two planning commission meetings. As you also know, the applicant requested an amendment to the planned commercial development district language so as to provide for residential uses as a permitted use in that planned commercial zoning district. What they're envisioning, what the project they have in mind involves a small big box grocery store, a couple of retail buildings facing Kingston Pike, and some multifamily buildings kind of around the periphery of the development. When the text amendment went to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, they actually made a couple of additional modifications, one of which was to require a team of professionals from a variety of backgrounds to work on the development of the concept plan. It's my understanding the applicant has involved a land planner in this plan that they've come up with, and that's now, of course, a requirement in the ordinance. Mainly what in the previous two workshop discussions we've looked at trying to adjust the concept master plan that is required as part of this particular rezoning. A concept plan is required for planned commercial and for town center district zoning districts, just to be clear. It's not required for like the Ivy property rezoning, for example. This is a kind of a complex multi-phase project that involves different uses and typically pretty large piece of property. So the concept plan is required as part of this rezoning process. A couple of the comments that the staff has had consistently really at both meetings have been dealing with trying to ensure that the scale of the buildings, particularly around the periphery, transition properly, kind of like what we try to do with the Horn property off Smith Road. And another thing that I would point out, just in looking at the future land use map, and this deals with that transition comment, the area to the south and part of this property is actually shown as open space on the future land use map. Now that area is to be protected. They actually show a 50-foot open space area in part of that, but it does appear that part of that development actually encroaches into that open space. I guess the main thing at this point that the staff has a concern about is that southern portion of their development and its impact to the steep slopes, the compliance with the language in the PCD district that talks about protecting natural resources. If y'all been out there, it's a heavily tree-covered, steep slope area. That's why it's shown as open space on the future land use map. So we feel that that area needs to be, I think, discussed in more detail and really thought through a little bit more, and how it be treated, how the open space that they're showing is actually considered functional, which is required in the planned commercial district. It doesn't appear to the staff as functional open space. It's disconnected, and you could end up with a situation when you develop that property of very tall retaining walls on the southern portion of the project that essentially barricade the project from what's around it, and that's kind of not the intent of the planned commercial district. So with those comments, I'll turn it over to any questions anybody may have. That's a topo map of the area, and you can see as you're moving down the map the steep slopes on the southern part. A lot of that's in that open space land use. As you go north, you've got that blue line is an ephemeral stream that runs through the property. It's a wet weather conveyance. It's not a stream.
That's right. There's a huge difference.
Yeah, they have had that analyzed. So, but that's kind of the staff's comments on the concept master plan at this time. I think it still needs some modifications, some improvements, some things that work better with the land. I do believe that a rezoning to the planned commercial development in that location of that part of town is a good consideration. I just think the concept master plan still needs some adjustments, particularly on that southern portion of the development and how they're incorporating the open space so that it's actually functional and connected, and trying to limit the impact to that heavily tree-covered part of the southern portion of the property.
Mark, are you grading in that area? Is that area going to be graded
Yes.
you'll be taking out all those trees too?
Yes,
Okay.
but the trees that are in the buffer area that are shown on the tree survey plan, that is an actual field survey, tree survey plan. If you notice, there's really not a lot of trees in the buffer area. We'll protect the trees in the buffer area and work around them. Everything outside the 50 feet, yes, we'll be grading.
Okay.
And I have brought another colored plan if y'all want to see it. If not, I'll just hold on to it.
I have a couple of comments. Mark Shipley, what's the percent grade that usually triggers this open space? I mean, I know we've had some other areas that we've kind of deemed environmentally sensitive with steep slopes. My memory thought it was 15%, but I could be wrong.
When we were updating the land use plan, we looked at 15% as the starting point. Yeah.
I wish that
Be steeper than that. And as you can see on that topo map, there's some parts of that. Let me pull that.
well, there's definitely some tight contours.
Yeah,
and
some of that's
shows
well
some
over
slopes. We knew we were
15%.
dealing with slopes on this site. I wish that we could have given the applicant some guidance earlier on.
That's why we're using the 3-4 split buildings to adjust for the grade.
Well, I guess what my thought is, I wish we could have given. We've looked at this item for quite a few months now, and
Yeah.
we've looked at
We want to vote today.
different plans and a lot of things. I wish, I guess, being a Monday morning quarterback, I wish we could have given you some guidance earlier on before you guys have spent a lot of time designing and revising. We still got to deal with the elephant in the room, which is the land use plan. But nevertheless, I do feel somewhat guilty as a commissioner. I wish we could have shed some light on this earlier on, and it didn't happen for whatever reason. And I think there's a lot of things that you guys are doing to mitigate the open space, i.e. you're taking other areas which could be developed and you're designating them as open space. So I think there's some other factors to look at. Yeah, I assume you guys have a presentation that you'd like to share
Yeah,
if it-
well, it's very similar to what we had last time in the colored presentation, but we do have another colored floor plan of what it looks like.
Can you show us the open space and what you propose and your connectivity?
Yes.
That's been a big mission of ours in the land use plan is to try to promote vehicular as well as especially pedestrian connectivity. Sometimes when you're dealing with slopes, you can't really connect vehicular-wise, but there may be, well, I don't need this big of one. Do you have something that we could all look at the same time, or? Well, and it might be that if you have an extra one, maybe you could put it where any of the folks in the audience could take a look at it too. Mark.
Oh.
The back table, and if anybody wants to walk to the back table and follow along,
Could you take one?
maybe that. I think Ron's got one. He's going to the back table with it. Maybe you can kind of give us a little narrative of what's occurring here.
Sure.
Kind of how you vision, somebody would pull into the site and how they would maneuver on the site, both with their car as well as maybe riding a bike or pushing a stroller.
Yeah. Well, obviously, coming off South Watt Road, we're gonna have to come up grade as much as we can to get to the roundabout area. So, because we're transitioning from the grocery area uphill going up towards the south. And we're using 3-4 split buildings there to help change grade because we're gonna have 12-foot difference between the basement level and the first floor.
You think, does that eliminate other retaining walls?
Well, there will be retaining walls associated with doing that, but that gives us 36 foot of relief going uphill.
And how many feet are we trying to climb?
We're going from, the lowest point on the site is 960, the highest point on the site is 1050.
But part of that's back up in the buffer.
That's in the very back area. We are showing a walking trail. It will not be ADA compliant, which we talked about last time, going up to the property to the south, through the Greenway area. And that, to build that, we probably will have to build some retaining walls to build that trail in, just because we're going to be transitioning grade all the way up.
But you should be able to do that with little short,
Yeah, it'd
more
be-
decorative type
Yes.
landscaping retaining walls.
Yes, small retaining walls and having steps in it, and not be all steps all the way up. It'll be like you have a slight slope going up and you have 3 or 4 steps and you go 20, 30 feet and you go another 3 or 4 steps and it'd be a slow transition. It won't be, but that's why it will not be ADA compliant.
Right.
But that's what we talked about last time when we were here. The parking that faces to the south will be facing into a retaining wall. There will have to be a retaining wall just to get the grades to work out. Now, how long and how high, I can't answer that question because we have not done a grading plan. We're not required to provide a grading plan as part of the concept plan.
Well, I personally wouldn't want to do a grading plan until you have a concept plan that makes sense and everybody's, consistently
Yes.
approving. So I don't
Yes.
blame you. So what you're envisioning is a retaining wall at the top of the sheet, where the front, basically, you want to call it the front bumper of those vehicles, there would be a retaining wall. You probably have some
About 5
parking
foot,
stops.
yeah, it'll be about 5 foot offset from the back of the curb, and then there'll
Okay.
be a retaining wall there, so we can transition up and create a nice buffer area that we can plant, meeting the town requirements from landscaping as buffering in that area, which in areas where there are trees that are on the tree survey, we will work around those, and it will be a 3 to 4 to 1 slope in the buffer area, which is required by town code. Just like we did at the overlook. I should say I did at the overlook.
Well, I mean, in fairness, I pointed out these comments last month. We talked about the retaining wall and my question about whether it's doable. So, I mean,
No way to make.
Well, no, we knew that the
I'm
size of the
never-
slope was
ADA
challenged.
can get in
I think
this way.
what has probably thrown me for a loop with this is, all of a sudden, I guess what I see is if all of a sudden we tell you guys you got to take out a portion or all of your multifamily component, then we just end up with just another grocery store,
When we
strip
don't-
mall with no.
We don't need rezoning because it's all in C1.
Well, no, I guess what I'd like to see is for us to embrace some true mixed use where you can live and you can shop and potentially maybe even work if you worked in the grocery store and one of the other retail shops on the same piece of property.
Yes.
Which we haven't done in the town of Farragut, and that is something that I think the land use plan promoted, and we're just trying to figure out a way is how do we get from point A to point B and
Exactly.
and make a lot of sense for both the environment as well as the community, and coming up with a project that's palatable for you guys as
Yes.
well. Could you kind of describe maybe some of the other? Did you look at some of the connections that Mark Shipley had mentioned to the west of how to try to? Was there any way to do any kind of connections to the west?
Actually, the plan that I provided to Mark in a PDF does show an interconnect off of the drive that goes above the grocery store. It shows the potential for a future connection right there. Because it's about the same grade going through there.
So that's where like the storage units are now?
Yeah, that's where the storage units are now, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But it would, I mean, that obviously if you would have the ability, because those
Yes.
may not always be storage units.
No,
Someday
we
they may
agree.
change.
And it is in a different county, it's not in the town of Farragut too.
Right.
So but we did have on the PDF that I provided to Mark, that it's not colored up, does show that easement in is a potential connection for car traffic. Car traffic going straight south, that's not possible.
Oh, you mean going up like to Old Stage Road?
Well, going through the middle of the back of the southern property, that's not possible.
Well, there's,
It's kind of like where at the Overlook, we were trying to make an interconnect between the units that are running parallel to the Holian Express and the Holian Express. There's 40-foot of difference in elevation there. You just can't do it. There's going to be 10 to 20 foot of difference in elevation here. In 50 feet, you can't make it up.
well, I think, quite frankly, when those parcels up on Old Stage Road get redeveloped someday, they're going to be little subdivisions or condos or something like that. It'd be hard for me to think that they're going to try to fight that grade to go down to the bottom. So I think that's a reasonable request to not try to force you to do a vehicular connection
And that's why
up to Old Stage Road there.
And as part of our agreement with the landowner who is going to end up with the two parcels up in the southern side, he wanted a pedestrian cross-access, and that's why we're showing the pedestrian cross-access. That's part of our agreement with them.
Well, we definitely like that as well,
Yes.
because when it does get redeveloped, then
Yep.
they can tie in a walking trail at that point.
Yep. Yes. And in regards to open space, Mark, we're only required to provide 1.8 acres, and we're providing almost 3.
well, I guess my question was whether, and this is up to the commission, really, it doesn't matter. I mean, in the ordinance, it's required to be functional open space. Now, if adding the trail through that open space to the south accomplishes that, in your all's opinion, then that's a way to make it functional, I suppose. I was just concerned because it is all tree covered there, and it is steep, and it's
Yeah, but
it's
most of the trees
difficult
do
to
not
do
meet the tree
much.
preservation ordinance requirements.
Yeah.
What do you mean, they're just too small?
They're too small.
Well,
We
there's
had a
over
sur- we
there's
had a
over
surveyor do it.
50 trees that are over 20 inches in diameter that would be removed in that tree covered area.
Well, that tree cover area goes all the way down to the parking lot of the grocery store, too.
Yeah, and I understand that. I mean, my point was just trying to lessen the impact of that steepest sloped area.
Louise, I know you have a question.
Well, the dedicated common open space you have where that fronts on Watt Road
Yes.
and the other, how much is that in
The
acres?
common space at Watt Road, that's about 1.5 acres.
And how much are you required to?
1.8. We're 10%.
So-
It's 18.65 acres, so we need almost 2 acres, and we're providing almost 3.
So we can say that we have functional open space that's meeting technically it's meeting our demands in
Yes,
those two
and also,
areas.
we also are providing the dedicated open space beside the last apartment close to the grocery store
Yeah.
also.
And quite frankly, I think some of their open space areas, if they're built as they're designed, where, you know, they're kind of like a nice little grass flat area, kind of like the big island back here behind us in Park Place, and that's real functional.
Yes.
I mean, it's a place for, you could set up, you know, a little, you know, you could do a little concert series. You could, so, you know, kids could throw a frisbee. I mean, I think those, and that's really our intent behind functional open space. It's not just about something to drive by and look at and say, oh,
Right.
that's pretty. There's nothing built there. But it's actually been folks are trying to, you know, get off the asphalt, get off the concrete, and try to be able to utilize it. Now, there's going to be some that use it more than others.
Yes.
But I think that's the idea by it being functional, is we really want to invite people to, heaven forbid you go sit on a park bench and eat lunch.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's what it's about.
Yeah, well, and Louise, like you and I we've talked before, that dedicated space between the grocery store and the first apartment there below the clubhouse, I envision the back edge of that being a retaining wall, that if somebody wanted, have a Saturday night movie in the park type thing, you could use the wall as the back screen. And have a relatively flat area in front of that, which would be usable by apartment users, people who drive up in the parking lot, or coordinate things with the apartment complex and say, hey, we want to do this here, can we lease it or whatever?
I mean, by just counting the parking spaces and assuming that they're 10 feet, and that area is at least 120 feet wide.
Yeah, and
So
it's
not-
about
it's not
60
a little-
foot, it's about 65, 70 foot deep.
So it's not a little dinky area.
No.
Now you got some of these little courtyards in between the buildings. I mean, those are just going to be areas where, maybe people walk their dog or things
Yeah,
like
those,
that. But
I envision those areas being, well, there's going to be a common, this is kind of misleading in a way, but I envision, kind of like we did at the Overlook, where between the buildings, there's a retaining wall, but we'll have a rail on top, so the top side will be flat, and the bottom side will be flat, and there'll be a vertical cut.
you know about where this
Between,
where the
like-
arbor trellis thing is?
No, I'm talking back on the 3 units that are running across parallel to the southern property line.
Okay, at the top of the sheet.
Between the 3 units, there'll be a retaining wall that because we have to, per code, the bottom floor has to have certain percentages, got to be buried in order to be considered a basement. So there'll be a retaining wall there, but we'll put a rail on the top, and the top will be flat, and the bottom will be flat. There'll be a vertical cut.
You're going to terrace it.
Yeah, we'll terrace it down so that the top area, if the people that are in the top units, they want to walk their dog over there to do their business, that's fine. And the people on the bottom, they can walk around in between the 2 units. It'll be a safe, flat area for them to do their, do the dog walking, or take the kids out there to run around in the yard or whatever. So, I mean, we're going to try and make it as family friendly as we can, yes. But
We're battling topography here,
yes,
and there's no way to make that friendly. I don't know that there's any way to make that friendly without removing the apartments from it. And the goal of the apartments is that we're going to anchor that grocery store there with that and have a
Yes.
true mixed use.
Yes. Yes, and one of the things that we talked at the staff development meeting, excuse my language, for some reason I'm really dry. The drive that goes in to the apartments between the grocery store and that common area, that drive will probably have to, we would love to keep it in, but I don't know how we can do that and keep and transition grades enough to make it work.
Okay, I'm lost. Which drive are you talking about? That you're gonna lose?
This little drive right here.
Oh, okay, that connection back
The
there.
little connection right
well,
there,
that kind
but-
of just connects to like the loading dock.
Well, but it is another interconnect between the apartments and the grocery store.
But you know what? Before you 86 that, you might want to check with the fire marshal. He may want that for apparatus
Let's
egress
put it this
and
way,
access.
he may be able to get out of that way, but he may not be able to get in that way with grades that are going to have to be accomplished.
Okay.
And believe me, Tyler wants it in there too, because he's the one that's been advocating for it ever since we started drawing this up.
I mean, it's probably not going to get used that much.
No, I agree.
But nevertheless, it might be something that for fire trucks and ambulances, things like
Yes, yes.
that, to give you an alternative.
Well, we do
access.
have basically 2 points of entry right off the roundabout into the
Yeah.
apartment complex. You got two different points of entry into the apartments.
And it'd be hard to think that that whole roundabout would get clogged up with an accident or
Well, I
something
hope
like that.
not.
I mean, I can see
There's-
one side of it maybe getting clogged up for some reason.
Wanting to drive in
Yeah.
this way or walk.
That entrance, and you have this entrance, and you have this convoluted entrance.
And actually, Louise, you asked about the green space. The green space, the open space that's dedicated around the southern property line and that, we don't need to meet the requirement. We just know that that's going to need to be green space anyways, because we just need to create, you got a buffer between us and the neighbors anyways.
Yeah.
It's part of that 50-foot transition.
Yes.
area.
And quite frankly, you'd just be fighting the grade going up
Oh, yeah,
that hill
we're gonna be
anyway.
fighting- we're gonna be fighting
you-
grade down there.
If it was different, if it was starting to slope back down, you
Yeah.
could chase it and grade
No,
it,
but no,
you're
we're-
not going to be able to do it. You're
No.
never going to catch up with it.
No, not at a 3-to-1.
No.
Could do it at a 2-to-1, but you don't allow 2-to-1, so.
You don't want to mow a 2-to-1 either.
No, we'd have to do something that's not mowable.
Mark, I know you haven't done the engineering yet on it, but did you can you give an idea of the retaining wall height in that back section?
In that backslide, I think it's going to be somewhere in the magnitude between 10 and 20 feet.
10, 20, so it's going to be pretty expensive too. isn't it?
Yes, well, and he's already given me a budget, and I'm trying to figure out how I meet it now. But yes, there's going to be, it's going to be a
That's a
decent-sized wall. It's going to be a challenge, yes, it's definitely going to be a challenge. As is getting
It's
the
going to be a challenge
grocery
to
up.
maintain it over time too, the way.
Yes, yes. Well, that kind of a wall in that area, I'm leaning towards recommending like a Ready Rock wall, where you have the blocks that are 2 foot tall, 4 foot long, and 4 to 6 to 8 foot deep. So you need a piece of heavy equipment to put them in. So we have limited amount of tiebacks going back into the slope, and you don't have every time, excuse my language, but every Tom, Dick, and Harry landscaper who can do the small blocks with enough help can get it done. This requires someone that has a piece of equipment that can lift a 1-ton plus.
20-foot walls with those little
No,
landscape blocks.
no, I do not. I mean,
No,
if-
those are significant walls you want to be there for 100 years plus.
yes, yes. I mean, if you want to see one that's like that, go over to West Town Mall, go down.
Actually, you know where you can see it right now? The detention pond at Dixie Lee Junction that TDOT's putting in is built out of those.
Yeah. Well, there's an apartment complex on the old Dean Hill Golf Course that if you come in off the rear road, there's 3 tiers of between 12 and 15 foot tall small block walls. That just scares the out of me. To put a building on top of something that tall, that close. And I mean, I've talked to the geotech that did it, and he goes, it's borderline, but yes, it works. It just scares me. In my good conscience, I couldn't do that.
Mark, can I ask, in the planning, when you guys were going through different ways of
Laying
kind
things
of
out.
embracing this placemaking, did you ever consider a building in front of the green space that's by Watt Road?
That we did. In fact, we wanted to put the gas station there at one time, the fuel center area there, but then Mark informed us we can't do that. And I didn't really want to put it there anyways, but we did show it there once. We did look at putting shops in that area, but to be truthfully honest, I think leaving that as an open space creates more visibility for the grocery store off of South Watt Road. And it's a more functional space to be used as an open space. I mean, that's a bigger piece of land that we can dedicate for open space.
understand what you're saying. Well, I meant, my thought was having a building, and I'm just curious what your thought process was through that. I have no idea what the topography looks like there, but in a way, having a building that actually you can walk out and engage in that space, just open up to it.
We early
This
on
is-
did.
Okay.
I'll let him talk.
There's a number early on with Humphreys and
Would you mind
Partners.
stating
Your
your
name?
saying your
Daniel
name
Smith,
for the record?
810.
Thank you.
Daniel
Appreciate it.
Smith, 810 Henley Street, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37902. We did early on with Humphreys and Partners. We had a building there. We also explored the clubhouse being there as well, or actually the clubhouse was where that current building is on South Watt Road. And then we had a pool house up further, and then we had a building there where the retention pond is. There was concerns from Mark that the retention pond needed to be bigger, and it wasn't big enough as the early, and that's where it needs to be as it flows down to that side. of the property. So for a number of reasons, we made the decision to move it. Humphreys was against it as well for a management standpoint, to have a kind of a lone, isolated building there without a lot of good parking in front of it. Created some problems, and so we just decided to nix it, and I think we've actually lowered maybe the amount of apartment buildings to what it is currently and got rid of it altogether.
I figured there was you had probably thought about that. We're battling topography here, and this is never going to be perfect because of the plot of land that it's on.
Nature only gives you one option, sometimes.
Economical enough to
Yeah.
build it.
Yeah, and I'm fine with what I'm looking at. I don't know how anyone else feels.
Any other comments from the commission? Questions?
Mark, how do we deal with the open space designation in the land use plan?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how much of their development is on that, because those maps on the future land use map, as you all know, are just conceptual. They're not tied down to meets and bounds. And quite frankly, I didn't notice it until very late, or I would have obviously mentioned it earlier.
I mean, we all worked on that
and
same
I
land
do-
use plan. I didn't think
Yeah,
about
I
it either.
apologize for that because I didn't notice it. I did know they were doing open space in the very south part of the development.
Yeah, and I believe.
Probably some of that green does encroach down the slope. And I guess if you're going to, approve a rezoning, then that area probably ought to be narrowed to reflect that, would be my
Want to
recommendation.
amend that land use plan to be consistent?
I would think so. Again, though, it's general, so it's hard to know exactly how much of that green space is in their actual non-open space part of the development.
Is there a hard and fast rule that we need to deal with the 15%? Is there something? Does that require a variance, or is that something that's left up to the discretion of this commission without a variance?
Yeah, there's nothing about the 15% that requires any action from you all. I think just my best memory of when we were going through with our consultant on creating the future land use maps, we looked at areas that I believe I think it was 15%, but I'm not positive.
You do realize 3-to-1 slopes is greater than 15%.
Yeah, and it maybe was steeper than that. It might have been 25.
Maybe it was
could have been
25.
25%. So I don't know, but that
17%, is that right?
No, it's closer to 33.
It'll be 33, okay.
Yes, my concern just from the ordinance language is that it does talk in the PCD about trying to protect the natural environment of the property. And like Louise said and Mark said, it's a challenge on this property because it's got significant topography.
Well, we're going to see more of
issues.
this. And we have
Yeah.
more, as the town has become more developed, we have harder to develop sites that are going to come in front of us that we're going to have to deal with off. And I'm not saying it's, we just, let the fox out and open up the hen house. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that this is something we're going to have to deal with more and more, and they're going to deal with more expensive sites. And usually when you have slopes, you have tree cover because a farmer back in the day didn't want to get on his tractor and bush hog it or cut it for hay.
Yeah,
Between
that's
slopes and sinkholes, we got.
that's true. That's most of the good land's
Welcome
already
to
been
East
developed.
Tennessee.
Yeah. I just want to point those things out, and I do still have some concerns about the concept master plan, although I do commend them on making a lot of improvements to it that we've suggested, and I do appreciate that. They've definitely
And we
taken
appreciate
a
the
lot
comments.
of our advice on that. I'm still just concerned about that south part of the property, and I don't know what, you do about it.
I mean, the connectivity issue portion of it?
No, more just the slopes and I don't know. To me, as a planner, I don't see it as an appropriate transition to what's further south, single family. I was thinking more along the lines of something like Gary Keckley did with the villages, where you have a comparable form of
Like attached single family is
you
kind
have
of
a
what you're
comparable form, but you don't have enough probably
But our land use,
physical space to get
No.
everything.
Well, the other
that
issue is
want.
you have to make the economics work.
Yeah.
When you're having to build retaining walls, and you would build retaining walls if you did attached single family as well,
Yeah.
you have to be able to get the density in there to make the performa work. And if you can't get the density, then You're
The
just
smaller
you're not-
footprint would allow less, potentially less
maybe smaller retaining
grading
walls.
and smaller
Yeah.
retaining walls. That was my point. But to get what they're wanting, yeah, there's no way to get it all in there. You just don't have enough physical space.
But you're talking about its current use. In our land use plan, we're talking about that that section on Old Stage being medium-density residential. From a.
Yeah, on the land use, that's
And
right.
from a land use
Yep.
perspective.
And that would be
it-
consistent.
It is consistent, so which one are we tied to?
I was referring to the existing plan of development that's to the south, but certainly you could argue.
Which is more just large lot, single family.
But you could certainly make that point. It is medium density
Yeah.
residential up there.
Look at where houses are now and how big
It's kind of a group. It's all development.
Name covers that open space, so that was part of the reason why I didn't notice it as much either, I think, in the maps and the plan. So it's a little bit.
We're going to have.
Oh, yeah, it does, where it
some of
says Old
this is
Stage
gonna have to
Road,
be
kind of goes
done.
over on top of that shaded area. Okay.
I mean, it's a challenging piece of property. There's no question about it.
Purchase some property from them. And I think he purchased some of this property, yeah.
You'd have to get into that. But again, there's still.
So what, are we workshopping this tonight, is that right?
No, it's up for a
It's up
vote.
for a vote.
I think the real question philosophically, when you look at this property and that zoning district, is it has more flexibility in it because it's planned commercial, but is this project offering something unique and special to the town? And that's your all's decision to make. I think you could certainly argue there's certain elements of it that are adding something different, some value.
I'd like to, if there's anybody in the audience that has some thoughts on kind of what we're talking about, I'd like to hear from any citizens that would like to share some input on this. Nobody?
Anybody in the audience make remarks that they need to be made?
Not even, okay. Here comes
Bob?
Bob Hill?
I'll get on the box.
Robert Hill, 11504 Mountain View Road, Farragut. This is sort of deja vu all over again with that piece of property. But the simple question is, are you satisfied with the way the traffic flow is going to be in the property and to the store? The principal entrance looks like it's going to be South White Road. And I was wondering why the store wasn't, Ms. Povlin brought this up a while ago. The store seems to be on the wrong end of the property in order to maintain a.
Well, you got an access here from
Well,
Kingston
that's
Pike.
that's off Kingston Pike.
Right, yeah.
But you can access it
You
on
can
a right
access it
turn,
there.
but I defy your ability to turn left there.
Right, yeah. Well, that would
That
be a
won't
challenge.
happen. But it looks like to me the property is, as this gentleman's laid it out, is about as intensively used as you can get it. Seems like there's a good bit of parking there. I don't know whether you want to have that much parking or not. But anyway, I would think that residents of that area would want to think about how people coming to the store are going to get there and back. And because it's going to be through the residential area to do that.
Bob, what residential area are you talking about that you would be coming and going from?
Well, where that traffic circle is there.
It's
the
across
South
from
White
ISO
Road.
area, basically.
I guess that lines up with the Icarium driveway?
That's
No?
going to be the principal entrance, I
Okay, I
think,
see
for
it.
people because it'll be possible to get in there. You can't use that other. You can use the access to the west there on Kingston Pike to get out and turn right, but you can't go left there very well, not safely.
This is all the apartments come out.
And I'm just thinking, as a resident there, I would like not to be on the main line of getting to the grocery store.
Or walk.
May I address a few questions? I think, one thing I would like to point out is that the retail section of this property is somewhat isolated from that entry point to the property. The most direct path are the two entry points on Kingston Pike, and that's where most people are going to go. Now, the future use of Kingston Pike may change, but right now the traffic count of that road is not such that you can't make a left-hand turn there by any stretch of the imagination. It would take a lot of development and a lot of traffic going down west of Watt Road to get to that point. So I don't think we're anywhere near that anytime soon, personally.
Is this an entry here, Ed? Is that an entry? Yeah. Little Joe's enters just from here, right?
I, for one, I'm pretty satisfied with where we've gone with this. We've been through a lot of different revisions with this. I, for one, am really excited to see a true mixed-use type development come to the town. I hope that when they put their performer together and deal with the grading and the slopes that we've talked about tonight, I hope all the numbers work, because I think this is really a special project in the far west end of town. And I think, and matter of fact, it seems like one of the first plans that we saw from you guys actually had a lot more parking than what you have now. So I think you probably had to battle your tenant to shave some parking off.
Actually, we're underparked. We've eliminated over 150 spaces from the first plan.
So you think that means when you have, I don't know, senior day on Wednesday and folks are coming in, you don't think that's...
The parking lot it'll look full because it will be full.
Okay. Well, I mean, we have a lot of parking lots and parking spots in the town that don't get used. Maybe they get used on Good Friday and that's about it.
Yeah.
Not Good Friday, on Black Friday.
Black Friday.
Black Friday.
The Monday before Thanksgiving.
Right.
You know, for the grocery stores, that's the week of Thanksgiving, the week of Christmas, the week of Easter.
By shrinking that, because like I said, we have I don't know, banks in town with 40 parking spots and 3 cars in them.
Yes.
So we do appreciate you guys shaving some parking
Yes.
off of this.
Yeah, from the first plan that we submitted to you, we have literally eliminated between 125 and 150 parking spaces.
Again, the request is from the rezoning from R1 and C1 to the PCD. So, are there any further questions, comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Hearing the motion in a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We thank you very much. We look forward to bringing a site development plan in front of you in the near future.
Mr. Chairman, which item are we going back to?
We're going back to
now?
what was original, all number 7, and number 5 is talk about the Ivy property. So it's discussion on a request to rezone parcels.
Okay.
52, 54, 54.01, 55, and 57, tax map 151, located at 12723, 12733, 12737, 12743, and 12751 Union Road, acres, from agriculture to R1 OSR, site incorporated applicant.
Yeah, let me get to that item real quick here. Sorry about that. Yeah. Well, this is the second workshop discussion on this item too. Let me pull up the map. Now, I do have some people that have signed up to speak about this one, so we'll take those after, and I've got their names when you're ready. Given the property's physical characteristics, as everybody knows, it's between Saddle Ridge and Fox Run on Union Road. The applicant's requested to rezone this to the R1 open space residential overlay. The property has a couple of drainages that bisect it, and it has some steeper slopes to the north. It's mostly pasture land, though. It's been farmed actively throughout its history. And the OSR, and we'll talk a little bit about that. It does provide more flexibility for somebody that's developing property in terms of the lot sizes and the arrangement of lots. It requires more open space than you would have under most traditional zoning districts, residential zoning districts. So you can have an opportunity to protect the environmentally sensitive areas and potentially provide a better buffer between what they're developing and what's around them. Of course, the road issue we've talked about. Everybody knows that Union Road is very substandard. The town is working on trying to come up with a cross section and get moving on road improvement. We probably are anticipating that it is going to be probably around 5 years between that now and when that road is improved. That's our best guess at this point. So it may be premature to rezone this property at this time. In fact, in my opinion, it is. I think we need to be a little further along with what we're doing with the road in terms of our funding. Because when you do rezone property, most of this property is currently zoned agriculture, and that requires a minimum 5-acre lot size. The R1 OSR is based on a density of 20,000 square feet, so it's a much more dense zoning district, although not nearly as dense as an R2 development, which allows a 15,000 square foot lot. Another thing that we talked about, there was a couple of residents that spoke about that had some concerns about the R1 OSR, and I think there might be some information that at least the staff can share with you a little bit on that zoning district, and that was one of the reasons why when we were going through the staff developer meeting with the applicant that they wanted us to come back on the workshop to really talk about why the OSR is what they're requesting whenever the property does get rezoned. It's true that if you rezoned it to a standard R1 or an R2 like Saddle Ridge and most of Fox Run, you do have a defined minimum lot size. You don't have that in the OSR. The OSR, however, does have a greater setback from the periphery of the development. So basically on that map you're looking at the screen, the building setbacks, any houses would have to be at least 50 feet away from that black line. If it were R2, they would only have to be 25 feet away. So you have a greater setback. You have that peripheral setback in the OSR. You also have, as I mentioned earlier, a much higher percentage of open space. You only have 10% in base R1 or R2. You have 35% in the OSR. And what that does is allow you to have a little bit more compact development on the land. You do sometimes end up with smaller lots than 15,000 square feet, but our experience in the OSR is that many of the lots are just as big, if not bigger, than Fox Run and Saddle Ridge. You're going to have a few that are smaller, but it's very comparable. But it does allow a developer to kind of concentrate the development on a smaller footprint of the property, and that allows you to have a better buffer around the periphery that protects existing residential areas. So this has been the OSR has been a very popular zoning district in the town. Bridgemore off McPhee Road, Sheffield, the Cove at Turkey Creek, Split Rail down on Everett Road, even McKinley Station that backs up to part of Fox Run. All those are open space residential. And to my knowledge, we haven't had any issues with existing subdivisions with those developments, and they all certainly are very high-end housing products that shouldn't deteriorate anyone's property value. So I think from the staff's perspective that when this property is ready to be rezoned, that the OSR is the best zoning district for the land and its physical characteristics. So, but I just wanted to give you an overview of that so that there might be a little bit better understanding of the open space overlay. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
Mark, before we start on the discussion, I just wanted everyone to be clear of where we stand on Union Road as far as where we are in the process. Right now, we're just in the design phase. We are going to have to apply for a design exception. TDOT has changed some of their standards, and we will have to apply for a design exception. The residents in that area want to be part of the discussion on the ultimate design of Union Road. And we may end up in a situation where what we want as a community may not be what TDOT will approve. And if we're in that situation, we as a community are going to have to decide whether we're going to take what TDOT is expecting of us, or as a community we're going to back off and do what the community is asking. So right now we're just in the design phase. And so funding is available at the TPO, but there's no guarantee right now that Union Road is going to be funded that way. So I just wanted you all to know that. And a second one, a point that I wanted to make for clarity, because I know it was mentioned in the staff developer, and I didn't realize it when I heard it the first time. Pecos is in Saddle Ridge. It's that road that's stubbed off. There's no way that should ever be used as a construction entrance. They should not have to deal with any construction equipment coming in through their neighborhood for the Ivy Farm to develop. So I just wanted to make that clear that they're concerned about that, and they should be. That should not ever be used as a construction entrance. And those are the only points I had to make.
Is the applicant here?
Yeah, Dave.
Any other questions or comments from the commission at this point?
David Robinette, 228 Oren Road, Farragut,
Thank you, Dave.
with Site Incorporated. I'll yield my time to have some comments. I mean, this is what we really talked about at the
In
meeting.
case we have some additional comments, I want to get you down here
Okay.
to address that,
Okay.
help us address that. And any other comments from the commissioner? If not, we'll open up for the questions that the people who have signed up. Mark?
Yeah, sorry. I was kind of lost there. I thought he was going to say something. We have Cynthia Galantine? Galantine, okay.
You'll give us your address, please, Cynthia.
Yes, my name's Cynthia Galantine, and I'm at 237 Saddle Ridge Drive in Farragut. Good evening. I have some written comments I'd like to read from. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you tonight very briefly. I've lived in Saddle Ridge for the last 6 years, and I have actively served in my subdivision for most of that time in various capacities, and am currently the president of the Homeowners Association. Last month, I, along with 6 other Saddle Ridge homeowners, attended the Planning Commission meeting where this current rezoning request was introduced and discussed. Since then, I have attempted to educate myself on the issues at hand so I might keep the Saddle Ridge homeowners abreast of this issue, as well as encourage them to voice their opinions before the Commission tonight and on an ongoing basis as this issue remains open. To that end, in just the last week, we've had 2 separate homeowner meetings to discuss this issue. Last Thursday, developer Travis Fuller met with approximately 35 homeowners to hold a Q&A about his preliminary plans for the development of the property. On Monday night, approximately 40 to 50 homeowners gathered to discuss our concerns with Alderman Louise Pavlin. While I do not speak for the subdivision, during the meeting Monday night, an informal vote was taken. And of the 40 to 50 homeowners in attendance, they unanimously indicated they did not want the rezoning request to be approved by the commission until the Union Road improvements are completed. The substandard and hazardous conditions of the road is not in question. The town of Farragut, as Mark has indicated, does not plan to complete this at least for 5 years. Thus, I do not believe there is any legitimate reason for the commission to grant or recommend this zoning change to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen until this road is sufficiently improved to safely accommodate the existing as well as additional traffic for the new subdivision. Furthermore, tying any approval of this rezoning request to potential road funding contributions by a developer appears inappropriate to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Okay, I've got Melissa Shell.
Hi, my name is Melissa Shell. I live at 12864 Pecos Road. I'm in agreement with Louise as far as not using Pecos Road as a construction entranceway, and I'm also in agreement with Cynthia with everything she said. We really would like for you to refrain from rezoning this area. Personally, I'd like to keep it agricultural, but I know that's never going to happen. But if you would please at this time reconsider voting on it, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Melissa? Do you all discuss the Pecos Road issue when you met with the developer, or did you meet with the?
I was out of town. I was not at that meeting. I was there Monday night,
Do you know
though.
if it was discussed?
Yes, Travis indicated that it could potentially be used as a construction entrance. He also said that there would be a secondary entrance on Union Road. Now, when you think about Union Road in its present condition, with construction traffic, it's just an extremely dangerous situation. I also wanted to clarify something that Mark said that we learned at the meeting with Travis, is that when I specifically asked him the homes that are on the lower part of that development, what the average lot size would be, he said in the neighborhood of 9,000 square feet. So it's not anywhere close to 15,000.
He was looking at putting villas, I think, down at the front.
Yeah, that probably is the smallest
Villa
lots that he would have, yeah, along Union Road.
Yes, and also when you mention the OSR, R1 OSR, and you mentioned Bridgemore, and you mentioned Sheffield, and you mentioned subdivisions that are really, really nice subdivisions, expensive subdivisions, that's not what he's proposing. So I don't know if that's really fair to present that and kind of give us an idea of that's the kind of development that's going to come in there. That's not the kind of development that's going to come in there. There may be some homes towards the rear part, and we already know that with the sloping in the back part of that property, there was talk at some of the meetings about retaining walls, and we're hearing about that with the previous issue. So just when we try to just simplify this issue, the road issue's number one, and then we just don't want any changes made, and we don't see there being any legitimate reason to rezone this property until the road situation is known and that it will safely accommodate the traffic. And we understand all the issues with the IVs, and they can sell their property agricultural if they want to. So that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you.
I don't think Mark Shipley was saying that the subdivisions are similar. He was just saying that these are examples of other subdivisions that are OSR, and just because it's OSR doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be small lots.
No, I understand that, but those subdivisions present a picture to people that are hearing this. And while it is true that they are R1 OSR, that's not what he's proposing to put in there.
Okay.
Thank you. Any others, Mark?
Okay, we have Michelle What's that last name? Mulheim? Mulheim? Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm Michelle
Could you
Mulheim.
give us your address, please?
I was getting there. Michelle Mulheim, 227 Saddle Ridge Drive. And that's in Saddle Ridge subdivision. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. As I understand it, the developer can develop the Ivy property right now as agricultural. Every 5 acres, they can put a house there. So once you rezone it to either the OSR or the R2, then they can start developing that property. So once you take that step to rezone it, then he can start building, or they can start building. So I'm saying for safety and congestion reasons, and just like Melissa and Cynthia have said before, the congestion and for safety, rezoning prior to the completion of Union Road is premature. That's what I have to, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got Charlene Trout.
I'm Charlene Trout, and I live at 12817 Union Road. And I agree completely with Cynthia due to so many uncertainties right now with the road situation and with the development. I feel like that it needs to be postponed until we know something about the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last one on that item is Tim Horst. Oh, you want to speak too? Okay, I got one more.
Yes, my name is Tim Horst. I live at 12856 Long Ridge Road in the Saddle Ridge subdivision. And just re-echoing what we've heard from all the other presenters, that we feel that rezoning at this time is premature. We need to understand better about what's going to happen to the road and what the plan is. We'd also like to hear some more from the developer if they want to pursue this R1 OSR. What is this development going to actually look like? Right now, we don't know, and it's the unknown that I think causes a lot of fear. Thank you.
I actually got one more. It just gave me there. Andrea Valdyke, please.
Hi, I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for your service and time, and also this opportunity to speak. I agree with...
What is your address?
Oh, sorry about that. It's Andrea Valdyke, and my address is 618 Saddle Ridge Drive. And I also agree with Cynthia Galentine and other comments that have been made tonight. I would just like to sort of simplify a few things. I'm not sure how many of you have been out to that site and actually either driven it or walked it. I did. So today, that road, you really can't characterize it as a rural road. It's more of a country road. And although they were not scientific, I measured the width of that road. And in 3 places, one by Saddle Ridge subdivision entrance, one in the middle, and one just prior to the bridge that spans the creek. The largest, granted they weren't scientific, but I'm a mom at work, and I know the bus stop goes down that road. So I've become concerned, I have safety concerns, and I do feel this rezoning is premature also for a few reasons. The road by Saddle Ridge was only 16 feet 10 inches. In the middle, toward the barn, which I believe, I'm not 100% sure, that's where the developer mentioned putting in another construction entrance, if not using Pecos Drive. Because I am opposed to Pecos being used as a construction entrance. It was only about 16 feet 4 inches. And then just prior to the creek, it was just 16 feet. So I'm really not clear. I'm picturing construction equipment, heavy equipment going in and out down that road with cars. As it is, cars, compact cars, can barely go by each other. And if someone's not paying attention or going a little faster than they should, which I'm just as guilty of doing, there are a lot of near misses. And I feel that the rezoning is premature and there are a lot of safety issues. Furthermore, at the bridge that spanned 18 feet 4 inches over the creek. And when I walked it, there was an area that was very concerning to me when I pictured a lot of heavy equipment coming in and out. Because when the developer spoke to our subdivision, he talked about how wonderful the topsoil was going to be near the pond, and how he made a comment, I can't say he would be doing this, on how he could foresee topsoil being hauled out of the Ivy property for sale to sustain some of the developing. So, you know, I'm a mom with children, bus stops, the road. I see trucks going in and out of there. And as it is, the two intersections that flow out of Union Road, which is the nice new improved intersection where you just added a light, which is wonderful that we have that, is helpful. But then the other intersection out of Hobbs can be very challenging. Okay, and so our subdivision constantly has to think, do we go left, do we go right, what intersection do I use? And so when that bridge is under construction, all the traffic is going to flow towards Saddle Ridge, and that's going to make a lot of congestion. And I think that that intersection, there's going to be accidents there more than we see as it is. As it is, a lot of neighbors in that area, it becomes so congested and back up that they will sit in the turning lane on Kingston Pike to allow neighbors to make a left-hand turn out. So I did want to get back to the school bus issue on Union Road. So there's a lot of points here, and I welcome any questions as I'm speaking if you have any. There are the FPS and FIS bus picks up from Union Road in the morning. Also FMS and FHS. Also HVA comes through there. They use Union Road. So I have, right now, visibility is great with summertime daylight hours. But in the mornings, I know the bus picks up children on Union Road. And a lot of times it's not very visible and light, even at 7 o'clock in the morning when we have the daylight hours going back and forth. So, you know, I have questions about all this increased traffic. You know, if it is rezoned and he is having construction equipment, heavy equipment going in and out, what happens, and the project is taking 4 or 5 years to complete, are homes being sold? Are we increasing traffic with homes being sold during this time also? So there's the bus stop issue. Then there's the issue when, if the bridge is under construction and all traffic is going out North Hobbs, that's increased traffic, and there's also an assisted living facility there on the corner of North Hobbs and Kingston Pike. So we have emergency vehicles that do go in and out of the assisted living facility quite a bit. So that questions whether there's bottlenecking with accessibility. And also, being a business, they have a lot of deliveries. So we're adding construction equipment to this that's being flowed all out that one entrance. Unless people go through Sedgefield, which is quite circuitous, and I'm sure those residents wouldn't appreciate all that increased traffic flow. So, you know, there's a lot of domino effects if you do approve this rezoning that I don't really think has been thought out. So I think that things just need to be tabled, and I'm not in support of it because of those reasons. And I also was uncomfortable with the discussion last meeting, Planning Commission meeting, that we were possibly tying some funding issues to purchase right-of-way property to alleviate town of Farragut budget matters, which I understand there's one pot of money and we all have to figure out where it goes. But I feel like if you're trying to figure out how are we going to alleviate budget issues to make this road improvement, to have the developer purchase some right-of-way property, I don't feel you're putting the best interest of the citizens first. Does anybody have any questions or clarifications for anything that I brought up?
I might offer that your tape measure is the same science that the surveyors use.
Very
It's actually pretty darn scientific.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for your comments.
Oh, and actually, this was an example also. There's a 5'6" section part of the road that just over the bridge is crumbling. So I had some notes here. I forgot to mention that. And we have a wonderful public works department. They work so hard, but that was just sort of the tipping point with me when I was like, this should not be approved. We have a large section right over the bridge that's crumbling down onto the creek side. And I will say that these pieces of paving were right on the painted line. Thank you.
Thank you. I think in the first time in my years on the planning commission, we actually had somebody bring in a piece of our roadway. So, thank you. Are there any more signed up?
No, that's it for that. Dave, I don't know if he's got anything.
I guess I'd like to clarify, let's talk about construction traffic or construction entrance. I guess we're really talking about two different things. Well, the roads and infrastructure is being built. Definitely the developer just doesn't connect to Pecos until it's finally paved. The heavy construction equipment, I think the majority of it will be dump trucks bringing in gravel and trucks delivering pipe and stuff like that. So that can be controlled by the developer of where it comes into the site. Not debating the fact that it still has to come down Union Road. Once the development first phase is connected to Pecos, then you're talking about lumber deliveries mainly for concrete blocks for building the houses. I don't see why that couldn't be controlled to an extent of it's all being built by one developer. The houses are all being built by the same person that they can't control, who their people delivering can keep them or tell them not to come through there. It's not like you can keep them out of there, but like I say, still not debating the fact that Union Road's still substandard. I mean, I realize that, and I'm not here to debate that tonight. The main reason I really wanted to discuss between R1 OSR and R2, from a designer standpoint, R1 OSR to me makes more sense just from the standpoint of leaving topographically challenged and the drainage ways alone and staying away from those areas. Obviously, I think we got in the same debate when we did Easton Park, where it was R2 surrounding us, and we went to R3, and we talked about density between R1 OSR and R3, and I think it came out to be about, on that 9 or 10 acre tract, it came out to be 34, 35 watts. Because the lots are smaller does not mean the houses are cheaper. It means the lots are smaller because the land's more expensive, but the price point of the house. And I was not invited by the developer. I didn't even know about the meeting 2 weeks ago or a week ago, so I was not there, and I don't know what was said, and I'm not here to debate anything that was said there. So I guess we just want some, and I'm not here to debate whether we're going to vote for it now or not vote for it now. I think there's a lot of things to still work through, and I know we still need to workshop this thing a few more times. We as I said at the last meeting, the earliest construction we could begin on this is next spring, a year from now. By the time we go through all the stuff that we have to go through, concept plan, then preliminary plat, and then get through this. So, I mean, if this takes another 3 or 4 months to make it through the rezoning, and if we get the rezoning, then you've got several more months of approval process to I guess let everybody have their input into the master plan and the concept. And I guess I just want some direction on, we are starting to prepare the master plan, and if we're going to head toward R2, I guess I want some opinion. If we're going to vote for it, what is the most appropriate zoning? Not saying we're voting on it, I'd like to have some input from the commissioners on what their thoughts are between the R1 OSR and R2.
Personally, I think it's a good candidate for OSR. Maybe not, I don't think it's a good candidate today. I think we've got a lot of issues to work through, but I think when it is appropriate to rezone, I think OSR makes the most sense. If I was one of those neighbors that abutted that, I would much rather have an OSR development knowing that I have a minimum of a 50-foot setback and 35% open space behind me versus another R1 or R2 development.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I would
Me too.
echo that, but again, I think we need to continue to workshop this, but I think it's still premature until we can address with more definition to the.
The developer called me about an hour before the meeting and said that he got hung up on another project in Maryville, so he wasn't able to come tonight. So,
well, we've got 3 members out tonight, including the chairman,
right.
And so I think have some further discussion on this, but we don't want to
So,
keep
Mark,
having the neighbors come out to every meeting either. But
Well, I don't know what we need to do at this point. I mean, I think it sounded like the commissioners felt like the OSR is probably the best district whenever it is appropriate to move forward. But I don't know if, I don't know beyond that what the next step would be, given the status of the road project improvements and still trying to work out, what the cross-section might look like and whether or not we'll proceed with funding and all that stuff. So I don't.
Can I say something?
Yeah. I think it's on.
John Nels, 221 Smith Road. I wasn't planning to speak to this, but I do think as a matter of procedure, if you simply table it, it can pop up at any time. And I don't think it's fair to the residents, the ones that have come out here. I think what you ought to do is vote on it. And if you vote it down, then there's a very definite procedure that's followed on timing and all that. And I suggest that's what you do, that you have a motion and vote on it.
Well, you can't vote on it tonight because
it's a
we haven't
workshop item
advertised it
tonight.
as a vote.
It's a workshop item tonight only.
But
So
it is, I mean, it could be an action item at another subsequent meeting.
So my suggestion right now is we certainly continue to a workshop session to the next meeting.
If you all see a value in that at this point.
Well, I only say that because of the 3 members that aren't here.
Yeah.
Prepared, I think, and quite frankly, agree that we ought to vote it, up or down on whether it's premature or not. I think that's the correct zoning if it was to be rezoned, but I personally think it's premature to do that. But I think, in deference to the 3 members that aren't here, including the chairman, that we need to at least have them have a chance to weigh in on that at the next meeting.
Cynthia, is that
Yes,
right? I think
yes.
there was Miss Cynthia wanted to say a few words.
I did want to ask Mr. Robinette if he has any idea, and I'd imagine he would, on what percentage of the property is buildable, economically buildable, because we're talking about 35% open space versus 10% with R1 or R2 district zoning. And if 20% is not buildable anyway, then I don't think we're not really comparing apples to apples here. We're acting like we're getting something, this 35% open space, which we might have anyway with the R2 zoning.
I can't answer that 100%. My guess would be it's probably around 70%. Just looking at it, I haven't done it, but I can tell you that I was involved with Saddle Ridge was designed, but it was probably at about the same 70%. You go up on top of that hill and see some of the retaining walls they built on those houses. They forced lots probably where they shouldn't have been up there in Saddle Ridge. I do have one question on did I answer your question? I think it's probably about 70%.
Yeah, so we're comparing 70% versus 65.
And I say 70% if you stay out of the areas that are more sensitive to the slopes and stuff like that. But as we saw tonight, you can overcome slopes. I mean, and they overcame slopes in Saddle Ridge when they built it. I do have a question. When they built Saddle Ridge, did the developer not improve that road to the entrance of Saddle Ridge?
Yeah, they improved the access point, and I think to the west, to Hobbs, just a short distance. It was the frontage part.
The tennis courts are.
So would it be off the table for us to improve the road back to Saddle Ridge like we talked about the last time? I mean, we did talk about it in the development meeting that because the roadway is going to be widened by the town in some sort of way, I mean, instead of just throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you know, I mean, we can come up with a way to develop this property just like the Saddle Ridge developer did when they developed Saddle Ridge 12, 15 years ago. I don't even know how long that's been.
That's been, I mean, that has been something standard that the town has worked with developers, whether it's Farmer Willow Creek, maybe even Fox Run going back far enough. What was the Saddlebrook development up on Boring Road where they widened it all the way to Smith Road? I can't remember the name of that development. Briarstone?
Baldwin Park,
yeah.
yeah.
And so, I mean, why would that not be an option if the developer's going to front the money to improve it to our standards?
Well, I mean, it's up to the commission and the board. I mean, and
Well, there was some discussion about the
feedback.
actual
Yeah.
alignment last time too, and how we're far enough along to so where
Right,
there wouldn't
yeah.
be
Well, we
any breakage of doing
Well,
that.
exactly what Ed's saying. We definitely don't want the developer to go spend a whole lot of money and then we tear it out
Right,
and do it
yeah.
design it differently.
I agree with that. Yeah,
And then
right.
there's also the concern that I would have that there are some folks that no matter how beautiful that road is to the west, they're still going to go east. Just because
agree.
if they're trying to head over to, I don't know, Turkey Creek, and they're trying to shortcut through over to Greasy Chapel, and I don't know how to address that because that could potentially still put a whole lot of traffic on a substandard road.
I just know from sitting through the meetings we've been sitting through that it is the opinion of the staff engineers right now that connection will be gone during construction to rebuild that bridge.
So it'll be terminated for some period of time.
Everything will go west.
Well, we do. I mean, you look, if you go down Union Road turns into Fleener Road, and we used to have a connection to Watt Road, and now we actually terminated that 10 or 15 years ago.
Right.
So maybe that's in the cards that Union Road is not a through road on a permanent basis. You have a improved road that would access and serve Saddle Ridge as well as your project. And then all of a sudden maybe the connectivity, I don't know, obviously there's a lot of things to think about, and we have different design philosophies today that we didn't have maybe 10 or 15, 20 years ago as well.
I mean, we had some discussion in some of the staff meetings. I mean, I think Louise was there that we talked about our entrance being toward the eastern end and possibly being a roundabout on Union Road, and that being the connection across, I don't remember the name of the farm there. Swan Farm that goes to the old Waggles at that road.
Way Station Trail. Yeah.
We're looking at, the idea has been pondered that roundabouts might be a nice way to calm traffic speeds on Union Road. We're just throwing out ideas at that point.
Right. I mean, it was just
Fleener
been
Road would have to
discussion.
be improved if we ever open it up again. It's at the end of it,
Oh, I
it's like
agree.
a driveway.
Yeah, I don't think it's simple as just taking out the curb and the island and, putting down asphalt. I mean, it's definitely substantial, especially west of Cool Springs. It's real narrow.
I agree.
So, but these are all thoughts. I do feel like that some of these things should maybe be hashed out on a staff level with administration, and when there's cost shares involved, we get the town attorney involved. But I think rezoning should be contingent upon any kind of agreement. Union Road has to be improved. There's no doubt about it. It has to be improved some shape or form. Whether we're going to wait and all the taxpayers are going to burden it because it's on the CIP eventually to do it, or if you guys want to speed that process up and throw some money at it. But I think it needs to be significant improvements for. I think about construction traffic going down that road and trying to get a 53-foot tractor trailer carrying, huge sections of concrete pipe down that road and turning into your construction entrance, those things really concern me. With some of one of the ladies talked about the school buses and the contractors, they like to get started about 7 o'clock in the morning before the sun's up. And I mean, all those things that were brought up tonight really concern me. So I think there's a lot of thought, but I think there's going to have to be some, if you guys want to speed this process up, i.e. rezone it prior to the completion of Union Road, which we're thinking is 5 years down the road or maybe more. I think there's going to have to be some other discussions that are going to have to occur about how to partner with the town, whether it's you guys widening it in one direction or maybe there's some other partnership that we can figure out. But we still got to design the road. We got to come up with something that meets the needs of the community on a long-term basis.
Right. And I think the design for Union Road is already through surveying stage or close to the end of surveying stage. So
I think that's the easy part, the field surveying. I mean, I think all the difficult parts determining the cross section and then also determining the alignment and so I think that's the surveying is the easy part. I mean, going out there and what one of the ladies did with her tape measure.
Right, but I don't think the alignment's changing.
And it may not change. We're just going to follow the center. The old center line is going to be basically the new center line. It's just going to be more asphalt.
I mean, if you change it much, you're going to be buying houses.
Well, that's true. And buying a lot more right away.
Right. Don't change it, you're going to be buying houses in certain locations.
Right.
And you're going to be putting in a new clubhouse and parking lot for Saddle Ridge.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that.
No.
It'd be just expensive.
We really don't.
Neither does the developer. Bob, did you have a final comment you'd like to add?
Robert Hill, 11504 Mountain View Road. Some of us were here when we closed Union Road. We closed it at the request of the residents along the road. And I think just don't deal with that because the town has a moral obligation, in my opinion, to keep that road closed because it's a natural bypass to get off Kingston Pike. And it'll be a terrible mess for anybody who lives on that road, and that's why it's closed now. And don't even think of reopening that for any purpose.
Bob, just to clarify, you're talking about Fleener Road at Watt Road.
No, where the Fleener Road, where Union Road and Fleener Road goes into Watt Road.
Right, but Union turns into, it's kind of weird. You wouldn't think it's that way, but for some reason it's been that way for 100 years.
I was trying to figure out what you were going to reopen, but that shouldn't be reopened. In fact, that's one of the reasons that you can make that Fleener Road a narrower road than a standard street.
That's true.
TDOT standard, because that would help. It bothers me also that North Hobbs enters the road, and that to some degree is a way to bypass traffic lights. And I'd just as soon see North Hobbs closed myself up at the end where it goes into Fleener. But you've got to keep that road from being a bypass on Kingston Pike. And if you open any roads or make it a good road so that you can bypass Kingston Pike, then it's going to be a living problem for people who live along the road.
I definitely don't think we're talking about
very entertaining matter.
Yeah, I think
that's what I just wanted to be sure you were not.
Okay.
Well,
and don't ever
underscore it for myself anyway.
We can keep it on the agenda next time since you said 3 planning commissioners were out and.
But I think that after that, I think we need to
figure out, sure.
Okay.
So we'll put it back on as a workshop next month in July.
Okay.
I guess I just want to reiterate, we would rather work out a plan to upgrade Union Road than to just say, oh, you can't develop this piece of property. I mean, because there's been many piece of property in this town developed by a developer coming in and widening roads and doing things to make it developable. And if this developer is willing to do that, we'd like to continue heading down that path.
Well, would certainly entertain if they're going to have some plan to make that palatable to folks, including the neighbors in the subdivision too.
Mark, will you make sure that their application date, we don't get in trouble with the TCA on dealing with an action item on this?
Yeah, I can double check, but it doesn't apply to rezonings.
So as long as we continue workshopping it,
Yeah, subdivision plats you have to act on.
but rezoning, we're, okay.
Right,
Make sure we
yeah,
I don't want to get in.
Yeah, rezonings. I mean, for the sake of the citizens, I think we need to take an action relatively soon, so they don't have to come every month to a meeting.
I agree.
Be afraid that some action's going to be taken without their input. So,
Hello, my name is Mike Galentine, 237 Saddle Ridge Drive, in Saddle Ridge community. One thing I would like to stress with respect to the improvement on Union Road before they get zoning and start the construction is the construction traffic is one issue, but once they get the homes and what they'll be developing first is the most densely populated part of the development, that will add a lot more traffic on Union Road. So imagine if Union Road improvements are not done, there's now a lot more traffic while they're trying to do improvements to Union Road. That's just going to make the problem worse for a period of time. Additionally, Union Road needs to be, he was talking about improving it only one way. It really needs to be improved both ways because a lot of the people that pull out of Saddle Ridge go towards Turkey Creek. They're not going just out to Kingston Pike, they're turning left and going to Turkey Creek. So the Union Road improvement really needs to be both directions, not just one. Thank you.
Point well taken.
I would like to add something.
Is it something additional, new?
Based on his comment. So Andre Valbeck again, 618 Saddle Ridge.
You can go to the microphone
Come up to
if
the
you don't
microphone,
mind.
because that's where we
Yeah.
also videotape the meeting.
I agree with him.
Wait till you get to the.
Sorry, Andrew. We have folks at home that try to watch it.
Time is precious. I agreed with him because a lot of residents do turn left out of Saddle Ridge, whether they're going toward Turkey Creek or to Kingston Pike, toward businesses in town of Farragut or toward the schools, because we opt to use the new and improved intersection and traffic light versus using Hobbs to make a left, because there are often a lot of accidents when citizens are trying to make a left onto Kingston Pike from North Hobbs. Thank you.
Thank you. No further discussion. We'll go to our next agenda item. And that'll be on, that item will be on the workshop next time.
Yeah,
We'll go
I'll
to
put
next
it back on there.
Our next item is a discussion and a request for a site plan amendment involving modification to building elevations associated with the Farragut Gateway project, former location of the Silver Spoon at 103 South Campbell Station Road, 2.2 acres, Zone C1, First Farragut Development LLC applicant.
I appreciate the applicant sticking around, Jake. But this is a little bit different discussion than what was advertised, and of course I had to keep it on the agenda as the way it was advertised in the paper. But the Silver Spoon property up here at the intersection of Campbell Station and Kingston Pike, there was a site plan back in May of 2016 that was approved by the Planning Commission, and since that time, the developer's been trying to work on leasing agreements and financing based on that approved plan. The area is in the mixed-use town center on our future land use map, and when they received back their the estimated cost on the project, they were substantially higher than what they had anticipated. And one of the costs that we're told that is really big is trying to meet the height requirement that is in the mixed-use town center. In that area, new buildings are required to either be at least 2 stories or have the appearance of being 2 stories from all 4 elevations. The intent of that, we talked about this when we were developing that zoning overlay. The intent was to try to actually get functional second floors and have mixed-use buildings. in our town center, the area that's identified as our town center, and then to start incrementally having new buildings have a kind of a town center appearance as properties are developed and redeveloped in that mixed-use town center area. This particular property is a little over 2 acres, and this applicant is marketing it for a couple of restaurants and some other commercial uses. And as you all know, restaurants have typically a high parking need. And so they have a piece of property that's essentially too small to accommodate the amount of parking that they need based on the uses that they're marketing, and have a functional second floor that they could build out and still be able to provide parking for that additional space. So the applicant's been faced with trying to meet the letter of our language in our ordinance to emulate the appearance of a two-story building without having the option based on their property to have a leasable space that they can use to offset the development costs. So they were going to present modifications to their building elevations for us to review tonight, but they chose to hold off on that because they wanted to get some revised cost estimates based on those modifications, and then if the costs come back favorable or more favorable for those, that they'll come back to the Planning Commission perhaps next month and present those elevations for your consideration. Those elevations would be a notable decrease in height, so that'll be something that you all would have to think about. But it really, in light of this issue and the fact that there are a number of relatively small properties, most of which are already developed, but there's some of them are vacant and could be redeveloped, like the Phillips 66 building, are on small tracts where, even smaller than this piece of property, where this particular requirement in the mixed-use town center could create an even bigger impact for them. So I thought that it might be a good idea to bring that up to you all for discussion purposes to see if perhaps we should look at the language in the mixed-use town center overlay and provide for some flexibility for smaller tracts. It could be those less than 3 acres or 2.5 acres or smaller, something where you don't have as much, I guess, flexibility in getting enough parking and getting enough leasable space. But then maybe decide on what the key design elements that we're looking for in the mixed-use town center would be for those smaller tracts. What are you willing to compromise on, and what are really just things that we just got to have? And to have a real discussion about that. Perhaps we want to stick with the 75% face brick on all the elevations, require some type of iconic element. But then, have maybe a defined building cap to give it a kind of a downtownish look, but then maybe consider more flexibility in that 2-story height requirement for these smaller pieces of property. So Jake Ogle's here. He's representing the applicant, and he can maybe describe some of the challenges that they've run into on this particular piece of property, and maybe get your all's thoughts on what I brought up there.
Thanks, Mark. Jake Ogle, 914 Hayslope Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee. As you guys know, we've been working on this since, I think, the latter part of 2015. We're not the first developer on it. We just recently had 3 contractors bid the latest set of plans, even started to take a look at some of the amended plans that we had discussed a few weeks ago, and the costs are still substantially higher than we need them to be to move forward. I think the biggest obstacle for us is just the height of the building. we're basically building a second floor that we can't generate any revenue to justify. And we'd love to have two stories, but as Mark said, the property's just not big enough to support the parking needs based on the users that we have lined up. The good news is we're still receiving quite a lot of interest from the tenant community, and we're in lease negotiations with 3 of them, but their patience is starting to grow thin. So any help or consideration from the Planning Commission would be greatly appreciated.
I attended the staff developer meeting, and they had the diagram or the representation of the building that they were trying to bring it down to, and it was tortured. It didn't accomplish what we are envisioning. And in the conversation of learning that basically this lot is so small that you can't have a usable second story, they're trying to make it look like a second story. It's not what we want. And at the end of the day, I think we really need to look at these smaller lots, bring it down to permit it to be 1 story, stick with the 75% brick, particularly because of where how that's going to be positioned on the lot. An iconic feature is a necessity because of on the corner. I don't have a problem compromising. At some point, we've made this too expensive, and we just need to get out of our own way. The center of our town looks like it's dying. We have had these 2 empty lots, abandoned buildings for an extremely long time. Businesses, corporations are coming in and taking a look at Farragut and thinking that you guys look like you're dying. We might think that we're stagnant, but from the outside looking in, it's not looking good. I would like to see this project go forward. I would like to see a good-looking building that we can. Right now, what we have is an old building that's bricked up or boarded up. I want to make sure that we stay with the features that are important to us, but I would like us to get out of our own way and finally see some growth in our downtown area.
Echo that 100%, very much so.
Yeah, I think when we set some of the constraints in the UTC, I certainly didn't want to envision that we had kind of a Hollywood set mentality where we were having all these fake facades. No. And in particular, that piece of property where you've got the Kingston Pike elevation above the building, that's just not palatable to me. So I'm certainly open to some flexibility that we can look at to build in this.
As much as I embrace the multi-story feature of what we thought and hope will be our downtown, I think we've started to come to realize that there are some scenarios based upon the economics of market demand that we may not be there in all scenarios to be able to support multi-story buildings. As much as we want to be a downtown Franklin or some other really areas that we kind of aspire to have a town center, we may not be there. But I do think there are some ways to take this building and future buildings on some of these smaller parcels and create the flavor of a downtown. Because I mean, you can go to downtown Sweetwater and there's some nice looking brick 1-story buildings. You can, and so there are. It's not impossible, and it is not against historical values to say that you can't have a 1-story building in a downtown area. It maybe wasn't necessarily our vision early on, but I think we've come to realize after a lot of folks have attempted what you guys have tried to attempt on that same piece of property, and based upon the economics of being primarily retail and a coffee shop and a restaurant, the folks that can pay the lease rates to justify developing a site that expensive, that 2 stories doesn't work. And so instead of us force feeding you these 2-story elements, I think maybe this is now it's not going to speed up your process, because we've got to figure out how to do this and not ruin the aesthetics of what we hope our downtown will feel like someday. It's going to take a long time for to get there. We've still got some buildings that definitely are not downtown-looking buildings in this MUTC, but we hope that eventually those sites will be redeveloped. And just like what you guys are doing, you're taking what is an ugly building and hopefully create something that's a lot better and generating some tax revenue, sales tax dollars specifically for the town of Farragut. So I think I'm echoing what some other commissioners have said. But I think there are some important elements. I think that the brick is real important to me. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking, if it's maybe the smaller allotment, we need to do a higher percentage of brick. Now the good news is a lot of things that we have been, for lack of a better word, appalled by, where sometimes architects design buildings with some unusual materials, we've already kind of eliminated out of the MUTC. And so maybe the 75% is just fine, being that your smorgasbord of other things aren't really that many other things. It's not like you can go put vinyl siding on it. So at any rate, I do think the iconic element, I think a particular type of storefront is important, and I definitely think having a building parapet which is, I think that is, there's something about downtown buildings and have parapets that are going past the roof where you're not having exposed roofs, because that's more of a residential thing. And there are times, there are areas in the town like the dollar store where that actually was more appropriate in the context because it was a little more residential setting. And so that one we kind of wanted to see a pitched roof. But I think in a downtown area, if you have a pitched roof, it needs to at least be concealed with with parapets, with brick parapet walls. And so I think there's some ways to be able to add some detail to that cap. And most of that language is already in our architectural design standards specific to the MUTC. I think really the discussion is, are there any additional things that, since we're allowing the buildings to shrink in height, are there anything else that we want to change to enhance or mitigate maybe that it's not a multi-story building? The only one that popped to mind to me was the 75% face brick. Is maybe do we want to increase that percentage or not? But I do think we're going down the right road with this, or at least I am as a commissioner. I hope this is the direction that we go. I would definitely like to see that site redeveloped.
As would
I've
we.
been looking at it for a long time. I'm sure you guys are tired of having it in inventory. You bought it some years ago thinking you could do certain things, and so I think we're at that point. So are there some other thoughts that are things that we definitely hang our hat on as far as architectural design standards? That's really what we're talking about here. Are the aesthetics of a downtown style building. And maybe this isn't something we can hash out tonight. Maybe it's going to take a bunch of different renderings and things that we pull off the internet of things what we like and what we don't like. What I don't want to do is just make this process so arduous for you guys that you're not getting any kind of answer. But I think the good news is that you're seeing that you probably haven't seen before tonight. Is you're starting to see some flexibility that. I don't want to say that you've worn us down enough with this, but I think we've come to the realization that, hey, maybe we've set the bar so high that even an Olympian can't get over our bar, and that really was not our intent. We do set our bar high in the town of Farragut, but we do want folks that are able, if they can see the vision that we see and they understand the benefits of being here, that they can get over the bar.
That's right.
Well, was there anything? I'm sorry.
No, I'm finished.
Then we have to have some reality on feedback from the actual developer community as well as our thoughts and the planning thoughts.
What about the acreage? Do y'all have any thought on that? So that it doesn't open it up to just everybody in the mix.
Well, at what point can you have a two-story? How much parking do you need? That kind of.
It all depends on the use.
Yeah,
See, that's the
depends on
problem.
it does.
I can take a little site if it's an office user and put a multi-story building, but I couldn't take his site because his site's too valuable to do that.
Yeah.
And so his site, the only way to make the site perform or work is to put retail in there because they can pay more dollars per square foot every year than an office user can. And so that's the problem. And then the retailers, they don't want to be upstairs. And then again, restaurants, as we all know, I mean, we were over at Little Bangkok last night or the night before, and there was not a spot in even that redesigned parking lot, which is awesome. There was zero parking in there because of two restaurants and the water into wine place in there. So restaurants do take up maybe more than their fair share, but it is what it is, and we want restaurants in the town. We used to have 3 restaurants right there at this intersection we're talking about, and now we have 0. And so we would actually like to get a restaurant back at that intersection. But that's the issue. It's not just as easy as saying, oh, we can make the parking work. It's the uses that drive that whole parking.
I think one of the things the two things that came to mind for me is kind of some encouragement on pursuing a one-level building. Is if you think to the old Village of Concord, the old Marble building was actually originally constructed as a one-story building, and then as the market kind of adjusted, as more people moved to the Concord in the 1800s, that he added on a second story, and it became a two-story building. So there's still flexibility sometime down the future that the building could increase in height, or that could be redeveloped in some way. Because even Concord started as one story, because that's only what the market allowed, and then it increased as time went on. And also just the main problem we're discussing here is because there's no parking, we can't have the downtown buildings we want. So I know like what Franklin did this all that is they built a very nice parking garage. It's out there, but if Farragut had it like Market Square couldn't really be what it is without the Market Square garage. Maybe sometime down the line, Farragut could consider maybe conceiving of some kind of parking structure.
But you got to remember that that Market Square came before the parking garage. So once there was enough critical mass and demand, and people really wanted to be on Market Square, the businesses want to locate, and especially the restaurants, which and then the outdoor concerts, all that came. But it didn't. If we remember, it didn't come overnight.
Yeah. Rome wasn't built in a day.
It took a long time to get there. I would be delighted if some years from now we're talking about a parking garage in our downtown area, because that tells us something. We have something exciting going on, which is really cool, and I hope it happens in my lifetime. But until then, we've got to figure out how to make it work in the economics of today, because all they're going to see when folks come into our town is, except for the Russell House and the jewelry store and across the street, it's kind of an ugly intersection.
In my living memory, I can't remember there being any business there. Like, if I go back and think as far back as I can remember, it's always been abandoned.
Well, you're so young is part of the problem there.
You're only 10, crying out loud.
The rest of us feels like yesterday. So.
Yeah. Which when we're selling this to prospective tenants, the confusing aspect to them is traffic counts are great, demographics are great, it's a vibrant intersection, so they say, why is that building empty? Why is that building empty? And that's the challenge that we've had with some of these prospective tenants, because we've had a couple that are already in the Knoxville area, similar demographics to here in Farragut, and fast casual restaurant concepts that do well, that we thought this was a comparable site, and they say it kind of feels like everything's moving away from Farragut into Turkey Creek and we say, hey, the income, the rooftops are right here. So it's been a great challenge, but hopefully the Planning Commission and Mark knows that we've really tried to design this thing in the spirit of the MUTC, and would like to continue to do that. But what our contractors are telling us is, because what we've been looking for in this budget is we've been looking for broad strokes on ways to cut costs to where we can get this thing, get the green light and go. The biggest thing is that they've told us is lowering the height of the building to more of a standard one-story level. But I think we could still incorporate the iconic element, and I think the brick, if we can keep it to the 75%, I think that could work too. It's really the second story, I think,
What was your other 25% material? Do you remember?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Well, I personally would rather see a one-story building that looks complete as somebody trying to create something that, for the sake of meeting an ordinance language, that doesn't look real.
I don't want it to look like Disney World.
Fake buildings.
Right. I don't want it, or a movie set. I don't think that was not our intent.
No, it wasn't. No,
And
we had good intentions to try to.
So the timeline would be that we'd have to really deal with the MUTC.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just to give you guys a heads up, the tenants that we are negotiating with right now would like to open by 2018, which I still think is feasible, but I know you got to think long term, but as quickly as we could do this
we need to move on this.
Yeah.
responsible manner.
We've been twiddling our thumbs for too long on this.
I
We need to move on it.
I could put an ordinance together on this, because it's not that
next
complicated.
meeting?
Once I have the parameters that you all are looking for, like the acreage, I still need to figure out what that.
I think for now, stick to 3 acres, and then if we need to alter it later, we can just go ahead.
If we feel like
listed there would be appropriate.
I think if we feel like it's being abused, then I think we can readdress it.
Right.
So we got brick, we got the iconic element, having a parapet or a defined cap.
I mean, I think really all the elements are going to stay in, Mark. I think
Just the
all
height.
the elements except the height restriction, or
And
height.
the
It's really a height
Be a
requirement.
pretty easy ordinance amendment. That
So I think we're really just leaving everything alone, except for parcels that are less than 3 acres,
Yep.
removing that height requirement.
Okay. Yeah, I could create a separate.
And we're still going to have all the
section
screening for mechanicals, which is going to dictate the parapets and the wall caps and the iconic element, storefront. I mean, so there's
maybe
gonna be
just add
so it
a
might be
sentence or
easier than we
something.
realize. It
Yeah.
might be just.
It
one
should be
sentence.
relatively easy, actually. I just wanted to get your all's feedback. When I've been working with Paul and and Jake on this for a long time, and I was thinking, well, maybe we need to revisit this language because we need to think about this. This has been dragged out too long.
Do you think there's?
Is it possible to deal with the MUTC changes at the next meeting?
Yeah.
And even vote on it?
Yes.
And then have on the next agenda item this request?
Yeah,
formal
I
request
think
to
you
vote
could
on.
do those.
Could we do it simultaneously?
Yeah.
And we do it on the same night.
Yes.
You know, I would. I don't. If there's any way we got to invite the press and do public notification and so forth. But it would be kind of nice to look at some photographs, which would be easily attainable on the internet, of one-story buildings. And I just want to make sure that there's not anything that we're missing, because there may be something that pops out to us and says, I don't want to slow this process down, Jake. That's not my objective here. My objective is I also don't want, we spend a lot of time on this MUTC, and in a real quick 30-day period of time, we've gone from red to blue. And I just want to make sure there's not something that we're missing that why we really embrace this. Now, again, what I'm talking about is, are there some elements of one-story buildings that we may want to require that we don't require right now, that are specific to this flavor of a downtown that we are trying to embrace?
That would not add significant additional costs, because
Significance the key word.
Yes.
It may add some cost, but I think that,
having that transparency facing the street is important. If you're talking about downtown look,
Right.
Whether it's one story or two story.
when we say transparency,
well, more window space.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's what I'm talking about, the storefront glass.
Mhm.
And so I think what we want to make sure is what we don't, again, and this is kind of how this falls in the MUTC anyway, we want to make sure that all of a sudden you don't have, just what looks like your service entrance and your utilities on the back of the building facing your main street.
Yeah.
We're excited you're pulling the building up to the street and putting your parking behind. That's the new philosophy that we're really embracing. But I think I wish
still want it to
if there's
look.
any way possible, even if
Yeah.
we did just a little review session, in an afternoon, where we could just run through some photographs and just make sure that there's not any elements on a one-story building that maybe wouldn't apply to a multi-story building.
Well, we can put something together
Put in
for
the
the
package.
staff developer meeting,
Round it out.
for the next staff developer meeting.
There you go. And that way, any
When is that?
Planning Commission meeting. I don't have a calendar with me. I think it's July the 5th, actually.
Well, what's great about that is you've already got that published, right? That's already been to the paper.
Well, it will be. It will be published. I can add it.
And
Staff
so,
developers usually on a Tuesday? Is that what we're
Yeah,
talking about?
but we
That's
got the 4th of July, so it'll
Oh,
probably be
yeah,
the
fifth.
Wednesday,
Okay.
the 5th, I think.
so
At what time?
4th of July is on a Tuesday
Starts
this
at
year.
9.
Okay, so it'd be the Wednesday.
Normally
after.
it would have been
But if
the
we
4th.
could,
Yeah.
if we could just take a look, and it may not, we may be directly on the right path by just eliminating the height requirement on parcels less than 3 acres. But I think this might just give us a little bit more information and also kind of refresh us to some of those elements that we liked when we worked on this so many years ago.
And if you guys have something that maybe Kelly and them could, or if you know of some one-story buildings that have kind of a unique look, like what Noah's talking about. Then
Ideally, a look that you guys
Send that.
already embrace, instead of us making you do something you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you would bring some of those things, that would be real helpful. I think talking to your architect in one of the staff developer meetings, I think you guys have kind of what we're looking for, what we're trying to create. We're trying to create a downtown that we don't have, and we want to make sure people don't confuse it with just a strip mall. Because we got plenty of those.
which the brick should help.
The brick is.
There's not a whole lot of brick strip malls.
You're exactly
out there.
right. Red brick to me has been the common denominator all along. And so, but again, there may be some other elements I mean, there are some pretty cool ways to, when you have your storefront, to have transoms, even on one-story buildings. Again, I'm not trying just to unnecessarily spend your money, but I think there are some things that we could look at. I won't talk about it anymore, but at the staff developer meeting, obviously the press and the public's invited, which is the July 5th.
Yeah, just if you've got something you want to bring to that, we'll get the time out to
Okay.
you on it. But
At least some
yep.
sketches, yeah.
Yep. Okay. We had John Niels has asked to speak on this matter.
John Nels, 221 Smith Road, and I'm fine with the one-story thing. I think it's a good idea, perfect. And yeah, I have input also, like on the brick. I think it ought to be 100%, or at least masonry material, because I'm imagining what you don't want it to look like is a dentist office or something like that, where you have wood and asphalt shingles. You know, you don't want that. Anyway, this is specifically about the ordinance, and I think this would be important. Developers are smart people. If you just blanket say less than 3 acres, everything will be subdivided to less than 3 acres so they can get around the ordinance. What I would suggest on the ordinance is that you put it on less than 3 acres as of a date, like today or something, so they can't go down the line and subdivide a big piece just to get around the 3 acre thing.
Okay. That's the same
still
language
have to
we got
review
in there
it. We would
now.
have to
actually.
rezone it.
Yeah,
we would
that
have
was
to
my
and
comment.
subdivide
That is a
it.
good thought,
We still have to review that.
Yep. All right.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. All right, we'll put something together and
Okay, we'll
try to
move
move
on to
forward with
the
that.
next agenda
Thank you.
item.
Thank you, Jake.
You.
Next agenda item is session 1 of housing discussion.
Section 1. She's
well.
already labeled as 1. The first session.
One of what? That's what I
Well, that's an
Existing
open-ended
residential
question.
zoning districts and housing provisions.
Yeah, let me get to that real quick. What time is it? Okay.
LLS, I think.
Well, as you all know, a few months ago, we had an applicant request an amendment actually to the R4 attached single-family zoning district. And he was asking to allow detached units as part of that zoning district. And we didn't really feel like that was an appropriate action to take at that time with the R4. There was some openness from some of the Planning Commission on looking at other options, like maybe a small lot cluster overlay. And then we kind of got into, driveways and all kinds of things that these smaller, more closely spaced houses create that you need to think about. And mainly that was in relation to what to do with some of the smaller infill lots that we have in the town that probably are too small for commercial, they're too small for larger residential development, and they may not be really marketable for single-family detached residential. And I think we were just a little bit, the more we got into this, at least I was a little bit overwhelmed about all the issues and questions and things that it seemed like going down one point of discussion led to other questions and things like that really needed to be thought about. And I think the transportation aspect that we've been talking with you all about the last couple of months, with looking at the major road plan and looking at cross sections, I don't think those can be really separated from a comprehensive discussion about housing and land use. And really, the more that I thought about this, the more it seems to me, at least, and I wanted to throw this out there, that it might be more productive to have the Planning Commission consider appointing a small working group. All their action would be open to the public, of course, but this would be a group that could more intensely focus on some of the issues that I think we need to have a serious discussion about in our town. What kind of housing are we lacking? Are we lacking certain housing? We're not appealing to certain groups, or are we fine? our transportation system, connectivity, things like that. We really have a lot of things I think we need to talk about. Are there some applications where we might consider as maybe a pilot program a different approach to land use, like a form-based zoning approach to like a mixed-use neighborhood or a mixed or a neighborhood commercial type zoning district that's a little bit more scaled down from general commercial. So I think it would be helpful to have the staff would be directing this. I mean, we would try to create outlines for discussion to keep it organized, but have a small group with diverse interests to work with the staff on helping with research. And actually, I would envision doing some short field trips to look at different things that we like and we don't like, and then for this group to come together and try to come up with some proposals and things that we could take in a more organized fashion to the public to get their feedback on. I think it's easier for the public to react to something, and I think having a process that's well thought through and a product that you can present to them that has been given a lot of thought, I think would be to me the best approach for us to take. I have another planner that's supposed to start in a couple of weeks to help me out, so that's going to be a project that if you all want us to move in that direction, I think that would be something that he would be excellent at working on along with me to help with that. But that's kind of something I threw out there. I just gave you some basic information in the packet this time on what we have currently, just to give you kind of a baseline. As you all probably know, our two most common residential zoning districts are the R1, traditional R1, and the R2. Those have been around for many years in the town. The open space overlay has been the most popular district in recent years, but it wasn't created until, I think, 2006. We have a number of vacant lots that are already zoned residential. Most of those are in the open space residential because, again, that's been our most popular zoning district with recent subdivision development. So they consequently have a higher percentage of undeveloped parcels at this point. As far as our housing prices, we've talked about this too back a few months ago. We actually have a pretty good variety of housing costs. Now, a lot of the lower cost housing is older housing, which I think we need to have a real serious discussion about. What are we going to do about that? How do we re-energize those older subdivisions? What can the town provide to make them feel like they're part of the community and have a lot of value, and to enhance the marketability of their developments, and don't let them spiral in the other direction, because that will obviously end up dragging the whole town down. With that, I'll just wanted to get your all's feedback on what you want the staff to do at this point, or if you have some better suggestions, and kind of go from there. I think I've got some maps here too.
Well, Mark, if we're looking at what we're really talking about is what was presented to us before off of Yarnell Road, that type of housing, I'm totally opposed to that.
Well,
I
in
would
my
be good, and I cannot be open-minded about it.
yeah, I understand that. I don't think that's exactly what we're looking for either. But what I'm thinking about is much more expanded than that. It's much more comprehensive. I mean, it relates to that first item tonight with the mixed use, the multifamily, and all that kind of. Those are the kind of projects that we might see more often. Mixed use is kind of the popular thing in a lot of the a lot of the development world at this point. We haven't really had a lot of that in the town. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, but I think we need to think about it and give it some real in-depth thought about all these types of housing considerations and how the transportation system, like what we're doing with Union Road, our public rights of ways is really the most important properties in our town, because what happens with them really sets the stage for what happens around them oftentimes. And we just need to be real cognizant of every subdivision that comes before us, every development that comes before us. Is it creating long-term value for the town? Are the transportation networks appropriate to the context? Things like that. So it's a lot more involved than just that particular request, at least from my perspective.
So, Mark, just for clarification, is this kind of like a future look into what we're going for?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll use our existing plans and things like that, but I think we need to have a real heart-to-heart discussion about the remaining 20% of our land that's not developed. What do we want to do with it?
The land use plan calls for, apparently that was one of the things we heard back from citizens, was that they wanted a more diverse choice of housing. That's a loaded word. What does that mean? To your point, Commissioner Dick, Mark sent out a booklet of what's the changing suburbs and housing and changed suburbs, and the thing that was listed in what Farragut would fall under was this community that had the houses fronted into this open space, and they had basically alleys and their parking was in the back, and so it had a few main streets, and you had parking behind your house. And the houses were just used this community land in them, and they were on small lots. And it was really very intriguing and very exciting to look at that. And of course, when you were writing up your thing for the overlay, it seemed like you were kind of trying to push in that direction. Certainly something that even on a small lot basis would be, I think, a very great fit in Farragut. So it's not necessarily the lot size, but how the roads and how they're situated, and making sure that whatever we're designing is going to have the end product that we think is going to be sustainable. Because you're right that what was proposed really is not sustainable, I don't think.
That's one of the things with the form-based approach, which we've never done in the town, and I'm certainly not an expert on it, but that requires a lot of visioning and input, which is fine, but it takes a lot of time and graphics and things. But essentially what that is kind of you present what you want a piece of property to look like, essentially, and then you basically craft the regulations to ensure that you get something like that. So it's almost like this is our vision for what we want to see here, and you kind of just disregard traditional zoning concepts. You just figure out, all right, here's your build to line, this is what we, and that might be something that we could experiment with, maybe on a new zoning district, and just to see how it goes. I mean, I know that the city of Knoxville has a form-based code for the Cumberland Avenue project, and they've had some problems with it, and they've had some successes with it, but
They've had successes with the Cumberland Avenue.
well, yeah, believe me, that's a classic vision project right there, because believe me, in 10 years from now, people are going to say that's a fantastic project, because it's going to add so much more value to that corridor.
It's like closing Market Square. I mean, it may seem like a crazy idea at the time, close Market Square, but
Yeah.
it's just such a success.
Mark, I get concerned that with you hiring a new employee, your assistant, as well as trying to train that employee, as well as what's going on in the economy and reviewing a lot of plans, this is a lot for your department to do right now. I think we ought to do this, but I personally would not be opposed to tabling it until you and your department really feel like that you're ready to tackle it.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know.
So what do you think that timeline was?
Well, now Mark may say, "Oh, I have plenty of time. I'm happy to
Well,
jump
no,
on
I
this."
don't really have plenty of
But
time.
I know how difficult this is, and I know probably
It's tough,
what's been on your plate of you doing two positions right now, and then trying to bring a new assistant planner on board and trying to get that planner up to speed. So if you wanted to put it on the back burner for 6 months,
Well, it's something that definitely
I'd be completely fine with that.
He and I are going to have an early discussion about, and just to get
Well,
his
do we want
thoughts
to name
on it.
a group to put together
Yeah,
so
we'd
that
have
when
to
they're
do
ready,
that.
we've done that part?
Let's do it.
Sure. I mean, Mark, I guess what I'm doing is I'm throwing the basketball in your court
No, and I
letting
appreciate
you
that.
decide
Yeah.
of how willing that you want to jump on this and in what kind of time frame, because I don't know, I feel like it's over. If I were in your shoes, it'd be overwhelming.
What I would like to do is get with the new person and just he and I work out an outline to present to you all to see if we've covered all the topics that that this is a reasonable approach before we get started.
I would hardly recommend coming back to us that, because I'm still having a time trying to grab exactly.
It's a lot of stuff, yeah. And we may end up having to just more
Start to eat this elephant and
Right.
and also satisfy the fact that why do I want to eat it?
Good point.
Because
yeah,
we're dealing, as you said, I'll use your 20%, and
Yeah.
we've got other things that are, both from redevelopment as well as things that are on the plate already in
Yeah.
the queue that you're hearing about.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely busy enough.
And Ed's right. We may just want to wait till another applicant comes up with it, and we can then start creating it, because I think this is a lot harder than creating a new zoning district.
Yeah.
This is just a whole different
Yeah.
philosophy
More comprehensive
to
of
try
taking
to.
the time out and seeing, where are we and really what
think-
do we want to influence
we
over
think
the
a
next
plan-
5 or 10 years?
We think a planned district is difficult, like what we dealt with the PCD tonight. I think this is more difficult. I'm not saying the end product is not better. I think it could be an awesome product.
Yeah.
But it is so difficult, because it's not black and white it's exactly like the PCD we dealt with. It would have been easier if it was just all black and white to you. You say yep, nope, yep. But it's not able to do that. It is by design designed to be more subjective.
Yeah.
And form-based zoning is going to be more. I'm just telling you, I think this is a big task to do this.
Yeah.
And personally, we'd give you a pass for a while if you wanted it.
And I think down the road at the right time,
I think we will try to, because it's important to me to be moving on this, because
Okay.
I don't want to let our land keep getting consumed and, things that, we may have to put in the budget to hire a consultant for future year, maybe next year or something, but I think we could certainly look at our community and create.
Got to be pulled together.
Yeah.
What we're dealing with, the 20% of the parcels that we're dealing with are fragmented, and I think that in itself creates a real challenge. We've got these little
Yeah, it
spots all
does.
over the place, and that goes against all of our connectivity. And so I think as a planner, that's probably one of the biggest things that's challenges you, is that what we're going to end up with are the bunch of these little pocket subdivisions or pocket developments.
Yeah, but these are real gifts too, because of where they are. I mean, you look at, we're going to have this PCD, then you have the Swan Farm, you have Ingalls property and what's going on behind that, and then we have our downtown section. We have these jewel properties in perfect locations for that activity center philosophy that we're trying to communicate, if we can just kind of keep with the vision of the potential there. Because that Ingalls property, that old Ingalls property, when that comes down, there's so much potential there.
Oh, yeah.
To have a real, almost like a PCD, you backed into it, but it takes taking careful look at it. But we have potential all over our community, even in just the parcels that are left. It's really an exciting time if you think about it, but you want to make sure that you have a handle on it and you have options and the ability for someone to come in and take full advantage of that.
You're more concerned about the commercial. See, I was thinking this had to do with that,
I'm concerned
that residential,
about all
these
of
little pockets of these little 2, 3, 4 acre,
I think all of it needs to be thought about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, not just commercial, but I think I'm real interested in pursuing a mixed use neighborhood. And I think around the McPhee roundabout would be the place to do it.
Yeah.
But,
So, Mark, when you began talking about this, you seemed to highlight that you wanted an action team, or what we call a tiger team in the military. You want some team to kind of do the legwork a little bit.
well,
on
just
it,
to
do a little
help
research.
and then to have a more focused group that you could pull together, and it's just easier to administer and get input with a smaller group. I'm not talking about more than probably 5 to 7 people. But we did that with the land use plan. It was on that. We've done it on many documents. I think it just helps organize the process a little bit better, and then we can go and take maybe small trips we might go to Hardin Valley or something to see something that
What not to do?
maybe, or go to someplace, Cherokee Boulevard, someplace that's not really that far, and just try to find out what do we like, what do we dislike, what's appropriate for different size tracks that we like and dislike, and things like that, to try to start getting a more defined vision in place for what we want to be in 20 years, instead of just reacting to everything that comes before us. And that seems like what most communities actually end up doing is reacting. We're a lot better than anybody that I know of, frankly. But we use our land use plan probably more than any community that I can think of, at least, and that's a great thing. Because a lot of places just they put it on the shelf, and it's just something that they adopted for the sake of adopting it, and they don't ever pay any attention to it.
So I'm in agreement with you, Louise, in putting together a team and then tabling this for 6 months.
Or whenever he's
Or
ready.
whenever
he's
you're ready.
Yeah.
Mark raised his hand.
That's fine, yeah.
We have 3 absent members. We can put them on.
Volunteer to be on it.
Jack,
But I'd like to actually
I can represent the youth.
I actually I have a youth person as a very important
Yes, I agree.
representative of this
Yes.
group, and Jack would be excellent to me. But
I say Jack's the chair. Go.
Also, I would like to keep serving some capacity of the planning commission. I know my term kind of ends this meeting, so there's no more youth that would like to be on the planning commission for the youth position. I'd like to maybe reapply for that for this upcoming school year, if that's available.
that's
Well,
up
I
to the
always thought the
board.
planning commission is, it takes you a year to figure out what's going on.
Okay, then perfect. Okay. I've just figured out I need another year, definitely.
I think it's great to have his input and perspective of a younger generation. So I think that's
So he just
great.
reapplies to the process, or
I don't know how that works. I'd have to look and see what the bylaws.
or can the mayor can appoint him just right now?
That'd be at the board, mayor, and alderman, but
Bless you, Mayor.
Well, maybe y'all could give some thought to who you might want to have on this committee, and we can, or group, if you think that's a good idea, and then we can maybe have a little further discussion on it next time. I'd like to have even people that disagree with each other. I think is helpful.
Absolutely.
I don't want just everybody that agrees with me on. I don't want that. I want a wide variety of perspectives.
Multiple perspectives. That's what's
wrong. So,
Well, and looking at these vacant lots, I don't see commercial on those.
it was just residential. I just had her do residential. Yeah.
I'd love to have this property.
Because I was thinking this was strictly residential, but.
It's quite a nice
commercial also.
variety
Yeah,
we have.
that is residential.
When you look at it, it really is.
Anybody else have any comments or thoughts on that? Well, I appreciate Noah's help there, but I would like to work on it. It's a matter of, getting Bart up to speed. He'll be the new person, so.
What's his name?
Bart Hose. He actually worked on the land use plan.
I thought you said Mark. And I was like, oh, what? I don't know what we're gonna do with that.
Mark number 1 and Mark number 2.
Bart Hose.
B-A-R-T?
Yeah.
Bart. Well,
He's got a lot of experience as a planner.
what town does he come from?
He worked for the state for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he worked for TEMA, so he's got a lot of experience with floodplains and hazard management and all that. So I think he'll be good. All right, I appreciate it.
agenda items.
We had a party of 8 cleaning out 2 lots on the creek behind us, behind our house and the house next door. And what we got out of it came from everywhere else. We actually had trees. 10, 12-foot trees. People,
Cut them and just dumped them, and they wash down.
they washed down from the.
I get a bunch of that. You wouldn't believe how many range balls that wash. Range balls from
Golf place over there.
I guess Sargoonies or the other golf
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Thousands. I'm not making that up. Every time we have a huge rain, kind of a flood event, there's range balls. You know, little white golf balls with the red stripe.
Yeah.
So if
That's
you
what
need
I
any
actually
range
use
balls
when I
from
play.
Sargoonies or wherever it's from, that they end up on my farm.
This is all from the neighbors up the hill, where the drainage and
Yeah.
also that other people
Washes
on the
down.
creek. 'Cause, and these are things that are cut, clear as cuts.
They're throwing their brush in the creek.
Well, there being no further business, the meeting is adjourned.
The streets above us draining.
All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.